Thank you. My question is to ask the Minister the plans to tackle food waste.
Thanks, Deputy Murnane-O'Connor, for raising this. And as you know, it's well documented that food waste is an important and real challenge in terms of the amount of food waste we lost, and it's an issue, food that is wasted, and it's an issue I take very seriously, both personally and also in relation to the strategic positions and actions taken by my department. At the strategic level, the Department of Agriculture and Food and Marine works very closely with its counterpart, the Department of Environment and Climate and Communications, on exploring ways to achieve the UN Sustainability Development Goal 12.3, which commits that by 2030 we should halve per capita on a global basis global food waste at both the retail and consumer levels, and reduce food losses as well along the production supply chains, including at post-harvest. That commitment is also reflected in our Food Vision 2030 10-year agri-food strategy. Together with Minister Oireachtas Smith, whose responsibility as Minister of State in his department for this, we launched the Government's Food Waste Prevention Roadmap in November of 2022, and that roadmap sets out a number of priority actions to bring the focus on food waste prevention in a coherent manner across key sectors in the supply chain. One of the key actions in the roadmap was a relaunch of the Environmental Protection Agency Food Charter, which again I did with Minister Oireachtas Smith last June. Food businesses that sign up to the Food Waste Charter make a number of commitments related to measuring, reporting and reducing food waste. While the sign up to the Charter is voluntary, these commitments by companies will be essential drivers across the agriculture and food supply chain to allow us to measure our progress against the 50% reduction target. In relation to funding, my own department has over the last few years provided €10 million for the purchase of specialised equipment by the National Prepared Consumer Food Centre in Ashtown that allows food companies to undertake piloting of their innovative processes, including reducing food waste in their production processes and packaging. Then in May last year I allocated €180,000 under the Rural Innovation and Development Fund to Food Cloud Growers Project as well, who are doing tremendous work, and that project aimed to redistribute 60 tonnes of food produce in 2023, avoiding 190,000 kilos of carbon equivalent. And then in January of this year, finally, Deputy, I issued another call for proposals under that fund too. So it's something we all have to take very seriously, and it's something that I, as Minister, working with Minister of State Oireachtas Smith in his department, are working closely on our respective teams. Thanks. Deputy.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. And you know, globally, Minister, a third of all food produced for human consumption is either lost or wasted. And as you said, the EPA estimates that in Ireland we waste about 750 tonnes of food each year. According to the EPA's 2021 research, most of the wastage occurs at manufacturing and processing stage, about 29%, or in household, 29%, with a 25% of waste being generated by restaurants and the food service industry. So I welcome the fact that you've spoke about your launches and everything, but I'm a firm believer, Minister, in communication, information and the working with the different areas. So if you look at, we'll say, when we're looking at household waste and all that, and you know, I'm a firm believer in education, I'm a firm believer in letting people know what's happening, and also incentives are so important in this type of area, I believe. I see there, in regards to the food waste, like it is becoming a huge issue, and as we said, globally, but also worrying is the impact on the environment, and the EPA is estimating that the food waste accounts up again global greenhouse gas is at 10%. That's quite worrying, Minister. So again, you spoke about your roadmap. I believe you're saying that you are on target to meet your targets by 2030, and I welcome that.
And thanks for raising it here today, Deputy Murnane-O'Connor, because I know you're very plugged into the farming community in Carlow and in your constituency of Carlow-Kilkenny, and you do massive work with them, and you're very aware of the massive effort and from morning until late at night, 365 days a year that goes into producing food. Indeed, I was glad to meet with many of the farmers at a meeting you organised a few months ago. But it's essential, and the onus is on all of us, to make sure that the massive work that the farm families do, that ends up on a plate and ends up fueling somebody's energy. whatever part of the world that might be, and that it doesn't get wasted and it sustains and nourishes people. And that requires right throughout the food supply chain that we're attentive to exactly what's happening and making sure that we eliminate waste. And there's an onus on all aspects of the supply chain and everyone that works in the sector, from farm to fork, to make sure that that is the case. So in terms of the leadership from my own department and the Department of Energy, Communications and Climate, working with the EPA as well, who have a strong advocacy role in relation to this, we do have the Food Charter to lay out the pathway as to how companies and everyone can contribute to that. There's been a really strong uptake of that, and we'll all continue to collectively to try and drive that forward, but also collectively as well to push out the message, like you're doing here today, of the importance of respecting food, the importance of respecting the work that farmers, whether in Carlow or anywhere else, put into producing that, and making sure that it ends up nourishing someone, people in our own country or any part of the world, because people need it and deserve the food, and the work that goes into it deserves to ensure that it ends up on their plate.
And thank you, Minister. And as you said about the hard work that our farming community do, and then of course we have our hoteliers and all across the board, everyone. Our food is so important to us, as you know. And I see that you have in the 2021, the EPA, you funded the Efficient Food Project, which estimated the amount of food waste and lost in primary production in Ireland for the first time. And that's really important that you have recognised this. And again, I want to pay tribute to all my own farmers in Carlow, Kilkenny, and I see the work that they do. Minister, I just let you know I met them at the rally 2 weeks ago in Carlow, so we'll talk about their concerns there. That's for another day, and I know you will meet with them. But again, look, I know your department is very much aware of it. I know the work that you're doing, and you spoke about the farm to fork, that the strategy, that is really important. And again, Minister, I can only highlight it's all about information, communication, and everybody working together, and we will get this. I believe we will go a long way to getting this issue sorted. Thank you.
Minister.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Murnane. And listen, we will continue to keep up the work. We'll continue to fund the many organisations who are doing great work on this aspect as well. And I think a bigger part of it as well is talking about it, discussing it, making sure that there's an awareness of it. As I think you said yourself, in terms of your average household, even within what goes from the fridge into the bin instead of from the fridge onto the plate, it costs about €800 a year to your average family in relation to that waste, as well as the awful sin that it is to see that food wasted and all that went into getting it that far. So it's something that each one of us can do more in this regard, and everyone right throughout the supply chain has to play their part if we're to significantly reduce in half that amount of waste that we see in the whole system by 2030. Thanks.